used to do when I was doing a lot of these is I hot glued these on, which worked fairly well. Every now and then you'd knock one off if you got a catch, but I found that the knurling on the inside actually helped the hot glue hold on a little better. I don't do that anymore for demos because I'm always afraid I'll lose one in a demo, which would be terribly embarrassing. So now I just glue them on. And this is what you get. You just get a, oh, that's interesting. You just get a thing glued on here. Now, what I found also is over time, these things start to get a little skinnier right here. And so I've had to go to, I have a various size spacers that I put in right here where my finger is. So that, because if your headstock spindle goes down in here and hits the bottom, what you're going to do is push the block off your retainer thing here. Now, so you can do this entire process without ever having to use a chuck, but I call this a production box. And the reason I call that is because it allows me to glue up a lot of them and stage them. I can take them, I can put them on the lathe, I can turn them, I can finish off the top, I can flip them around. So I've got a series of slides here, PowerPoint slides that I'll show you, and you'll see actually how this gets constructed. So here's our piece on the lathe. In this case, it's actually on a chuck, but I'm just using it for education purposes. So I've turned it around. I've got it squared off on the end. What I've done here is that's going to be the bottom of my lid. So one thing you won't get with this particular technique is you will not get grain alignment, because we're going to take that lid and we're going to flip it 180 degrees around. So the grain is going to be exactly opposite from the top to the bottom. In most cases, that's not noticeable. If you're running a piece of spalted wood or something, you know, this is not the process you'd want to use. If you're running a piece of wood that you're going to put some dye on or something, or you're going to put some curves in it, like the first little box I showed, that the crepe myrtle box. If you make that top with a little rolled edge, you'll never see the fact that the grain doesn't match. So there it is again, picture of what we're going to do. There, what I've done is I went ahead and did a little texturing, which I'm going to do tonight, and I put a little sanding sealer on it. And the reason I've done it at this stage is because you can't go back easily. Once you've gotten past this and you've parted that top off, there's not an easy way to rechuck it and finish it off differently. So I parted it off. I've made my tenon there. We had our mortise in the top. Now we've made our tenon for that mortise to fit on, so the top will go back on just like that. We popped it on. You'll see, I probably don't have the grain aligned very well there, but you'll see you do not have any grain alignment. I brought my tailstock up to hold it. I've retrued the whole thing at some point in time. I've run a texturing tool down it. I'm going to do it a little bit different than this piece tonight, because I've gone ahead and relieved it and put some burn lines in it prior to coloring it. Tonight I'm going to color it, and then we're going to try and put the texture, we're going to try and put the burn lines in it afterwards. I put a little embellishment there on the end. Excuse me. I've taped it. We're not going to tape it tonight. We're going to dye it, and then we're going to relieve the part that we don't want dyed. And there it is, done and clear on it. Now, normally if I was doing a series of these, I would have done this. What I would have done when I put the color and stuff on it is I would have taken this box off and set it aside, and I would put another box on and carried it up to this point before I ever start to hollow. That way, when I get my hollowing rig set up to hollow on it, I don't have to back up and take it on and off and on and off. I'll be ready to do them all in a series. There's just another view of it. There it is. That's a Trent Bosch hollowing system that I'm going to use tonight. There it is, hollowed. You notice that it still has a base on it, but I've got a part line down there in it. It's still in the chuck. Now I've parted it off the chuck, and I've made that into a jam chuck so that I can turn around and jam it. Now, normally I don't do that either if I'm making a lot of these, because that means I have to build a jam chuck for each and every box. So normally what I do is I use my chuck at this point in time to expand it into the box. So I'll show you how to do that too. That one got misplaced somewhere. Oh, there's the bottom. I'm sorry. Let me back up. There it is, turned around and jammed on. I lost my place. And I've done a little texture in there in the bottom. And there's our finished product. So that's what we're going to shoot for tonight. Anybody have any questions about the sequence we're going to go through?
Got it.
Well, thank you for at least saying something, because it's kind of lonely out here. All right. So we got our block of wood on here. This is a piece of hard maple. Obviously, I did something there, but it's not going to show. It's going to be in the corner. So this is a piece of hard maple, and I was getting my hard maple from a distributor out of South Carolina, and I haven't been able to get any lately. And I think this is actually my next to last piece. So you guys may be getting my next to last demo unless I go to a different wood. I'm going to start off just rounding it up. I'm going to use a spindle roughing gouge. I have two spindle roughing gouge. This particular one here is at a 45-degree bevel angle that it's been sharpened to. And I've really made it for harder woods. 45 is kind of your standard grind on it. I have another one. If you turn a little bit things that are a little bit softer, sometimes the 45 wants to tear on it. I've got another one that's sharpened to 40. It does a little bit better when I'm turning something that's maybe got a little punky wood in it. It doesn't tear out quite as bad. So let's see if we can get the lathe working. We'll check it. It's on the right speed. Looks like it's going to run. That's a good start, right? Let me back this up just a little bit. Folks, Stephanie will try and keep me, will tell me if, my hand gets in the way and you guys can't see anything. But if she fails to respond to that, it's, y'all sing out and tell me if you need a different camera angle or something.
At some point during the presentation, you should probably say why you are wearing a Band-Aid on your finger.
Oh, you think? How about when I get there, I'll tell them about it. But thank you for reminding. I generally don't talk about all my mistakes, Stephanie.
Well, that one keeps showing up in the camera.
Is my volume okay with a face shield on?
The volume's okay, but the camera went out of focus.
Oh, it did, didn't it? Okay, well, let's see if we can fix that.
Try moving the camera. There you go.
Damn, I'm gonna try to back it up a little bit. All right, let's try it now. That's a little bit better. All right. Sounds a little bit better. I was on that bevel just a little bit hard. It doesn't look like I have any real beginners out there, but I'll go through this anyway. We're going to anchor our tool. We're going to find our bevel here. We're going to raise the back of the tool up until it starts to cut, and that's going to be where we're going to cut at. So let me show you a little something here real quick. No, that's not too bad. If you come in here like that with your flute opened up here like this, and you come into a piece like that, you're subject to getting some tear out. See it right here? If you come in here from an angle, like over here, I don't think this gouge is very sharp either, by the way, folks. I did not sharpen it. See, I'm going to get a much better cut. So hang on a second. Let me grab another roughing gouge. Maybe it'll be a little bit sharper. There. So you notice this one's a little bit, it's got a little bit sharper angle on it here. Should give me a little bit smoother cut. All right, so we got that part done.
Just so you know, we're still out here.
Yes, I know. So I've got a regular 5/8 bowl gouge. I've got it ground back like this. It's got a standard Ellsworth 60-degree bevel angle on it. And I'm just going to square this end off. Now I'm actually using a bevel supported cut here. You can tell that because if I put it up there, let me see if I can, hang on just a minute, this camera's gonna wiggle, but let me see if I can slide it over just a little bit there. Maybe give you this other camera in here with it. And you can see here. So I'm sliding along on the bevel here, as you can see, and all I'm doing is I'm advancing the handle forward. So I've got it like this, and rather than roll the flute open, which gets the catch, I'm moving the handle forward this way to come off the heel of this bevel. So I've got it here, it's on the bevel, I'm rolling the tool forward away from me, and that gives me that cut. So I'm just gonna take some wood out here. I will warn you about something. If you use hard maple, when you come in right here at this point, if you jam this tool in too hard, it's gonna skate out on you. The reason I use maple for these boxes is because they take the texture so well, and it's a real light colored wood, so it allows me to dye them and come out with some really interesting patterns. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip my gouge back over this way. Now there's a lot of ways to do this. You don't have to use a gouge. You can use any type of scraping tool you feel comfortable with. I just happen to have a lot of hours on this gouge, and so I'm gonna flip it over, and I've almost got this thing vertical. This flute's almost vertical, so the tip's just barely cutting. And you see what I'm getting off of it here? These little fine whiskers. I gotta find my camera there. So I'm not taking a very big bite. This is not a very bevel. I'm on a bevel somewhat, but it's not what I'd call a real bevel supported cut coming out of here. It's more like I'm just controlling the end of it. Now, let me change cameras here real quick for you. There. Now maybe you can see what I'm doing. So I'm coming in right here, and I'm making.
Excuse me, can you tip the camera up a little bit? Because it's getting cut off at the top. There you go. Oops.
How's that?
That's perfect. That's
So
perfect.
my wall thickness right here is, I would like to end up, when I'm totally done, with about 1/8 of an inch wall thickness. But I'm going to retrue this thing later. So I want to, I'm going to retrue it later. So I want to make sure that I leave enough meat there. So when I retrue it and I texture it, I can cut the texture out and still have some things. So I'm thinking somewhere between 4 or 5 millimeters. So, you know, if you're an English measuring person, we're talking that 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch or so in here for wall thickness. So that's what I'm shooting for. That looks pretty good there. Now I'm going to come back to a standard cut, a bevel supported cut, and I'm going to clean that all up. Now let's take a look at it and see what we look like. It's pretty good. I think I can get away with no sanding on it. I'm going to grab some type of scraper. Excuse me, my shoelace came untied. Let's start off with this, okay? Plain old homemade type parting tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here nice and square. I'm going to come in here nice and square with this parting tool, and I'm going to put a nice square edge on it right there. I'm going to keep this part of my parting tool parallel with my bedways so that my mortise here is nice and straight. A little bit thinner there. All right. Negative rake scraper here just to clean it up nice and smooth real quick. And there's what we got. Now, so this is what I'm shooting for, folks. This is what I just made, my mortise. Then I'm going to come back and I'm going to make a tenon on the base piece so that when I put them together, I get a nice joint. And if you'll notice, you know, on this particular piece, I got fairly good grain alignment. This is a box I made and it didn't survive. So later when I'm hollowing, this is what I'm looking for in the bottom of my box is a nice curved edge so that if you use it to put a coin in or you use it to put your wedding bands or some other object in there, you can put your finger in there and slide it right out as opposed to having to turn the box upside down and dump it all out. So that's what I'm looking for. That's what I've got here. I've got a nice flat edge here. Now I'm going to put some texture in it. So let me talk about this texture tool real quick. This is a Robert Sorsby. This is the small texture tool, and I have both of them, and I'm going to tell you, I use this one about probably 20 or 30 times more than I use the big one because I can get the kind of texture I want out of it. I've actually got it set here at about 45 degrees here on this roller. That's going to give me that little spiral cut. But it's like everything we do, it has a learning curve. Let me explain to you what I've got here. I've got a series of these little things. When I get down here at the end, I'm going to end up with something that looks like this, okay? that allows me to come back and use this texturing tool, which works extremely well on end grain, not so well on side grain. It allows me to come back here and do these little things. And then what I can do is I can put on the back of it what I've actually done. I used heavy pressure and I tilted it, and I got this spiral thing. Now, what you have to watch out for, and you see I've got a series of these. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I am going to explain to you how this tool works. If you'll notice right here, can you see that split knurl? Is that coming through well enough for you to see it? Right there, see how it split out there, and you see it again right there where my finger
Yes,
is?
you can see it.
Okay, what happens is this wheel, when it's tracking right here in this smaller spot, say this wheel's actually turning one time to go all the way around here like this. Unfortunately, when you get out here, that's a lot bigger diameter, and this wheel has to turn maybe 10 times, and it's not going to do that. So to avoid that, what you need to do is I found you need to change the angle that you come in here. This leaves this tool at a 45-degree angle. So let's look at it like this. If I'm presenting this tool right here, you see I've got a 45-degree angle here. Everybody see that? If the part was here like this, and we're looking at, that's cutting on the wood at 45. But if I merely move the back of the handle around, now I've just got a negative scraper. I'm not at any angle at all. So what that allows it to do is it allows it to track without splitting that knurl. And all it does is it takes a little practice. We're going to slow the lathe down here to, let me give you a picture in a picture here real quick. We're going to slow the lathe down to about 500 RPMs. And I'm not big on lathe speed, I'll tell you guys right now. I hardly ever look at the speed except when I'm drilling or I'm using this tool. We're going to back our tool rest up because we want the major part of this tool here to be on the, and let me move this just a little bit.
With that picture in picture, we can't see the tool rest.
Okay. Well, let me take this out then. All right. So here's what I want. I want this tool to come in here nice and square. I want it to be at center or just slightly above center. That's what I've got right now. I'm at center right here. And what I'm going to do is I advance this tool across here. I'm going to pull the handle this way. The handle's going to go faster than the roller bit. Now, since this bottom part is curved like this, it's naturally wanting to change angles already as it's running up that curve. So I don't have to be as exaggerated here as I will be when I do the top on the other side where I'm doing the curve the other way. Then here I may only have to move it this far. When I do the curve the other way, I may have to move it this far to keep it from splitting that knurl. So let's give it a try and see what we can come up with. So I'm running about 500 RPMs. I'm on center. I need a little bit closer here on my tool rest. I'm going to sit it. I'm going to go in straight into the wood, and I'm going to apply light pressure. And then I'm going to increase that pressure and get it to start tracking. Then I'm going to start working it out, and my hand is going to come out faster in the back than I'm advancing the roller in the front. All right. There's what we've got. Nice little spiral. Split a little bit right there. Did real well. We can define that a little bit. We can take a little tool here, just a little pointy tool, nothing fancy. Come in about right there with it.
Jack, do you only get one shot at that, or can you go back over that same?
Well, you can take it and hollow it back out again and start over again. But it's pretty much a one-shot deal there.
Right.
All right, guys, I'm going to actually try and finish this out for you tonight. I don't know, a lot of these demos now are not so time constrained as they were before when we had to get out of a building. I figured now if I go too late and people get tired, they'll just fall asleep. Of course, that's an indication that I'm probably pretty boring if you're falling asleep.
What's
And you know
what's
what?
worse is when they fall asleep in the seats at the meetings.
And you're
Hey,
left alone to sweep up your own garage.
I was doing a demo, and I won't tell you which club, because if I did, you'd know who guys it were. And the two guys who always drink a lot of beer, they both came in about half inebriated. And this is sanding sealer. I can find my camera here.
Can't see it.
This is just sanding sealer, and I cut it half and half with lacquer thinner, which is mostly acetone. You can use either one. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put a little in here, and I'm just gonna spread it around with my finger. Just that quick. I'm not going to be able to use a lot of this here and here because I don't have any air filtration running tonight. I'm just going to bring my speed up and dry it here real quick.
You didn't finish the story about the fellows who came in.
They came in about half inebriated, and about 15 minutes into my demo, they were both kind of leaning against each other snoring. And so I didn't say anything, and the demo went on, and about a year later, I was back at the same club doing another demo, and they came in kind of inebriated again. I said, "You guys don't snore tonight." And I think I actually embarrassed them, but I didn't mean to. So, all right. So that's the bottom part of our lid. Now all we need to do is part it off. Depending on exactly how you want it to do the top, depends on where you want to part it at. I have a backup piece here. If you'll notice this piece, you see I got a pretty good ridge here. So this one was fairly fat. I made a backup piece just in case I blow this thing up. And I didn't get my part line quite far enough, so it would be a much shallower lid. So I'm gonna try and get this one a little deeper. One thing about making them deeper, if you use a dye on them, you're less likely to get the dye to bleed all the way through to the inside, which really looks bad when it happens. So the end of our top of our bottom's about there. So let's drop to about, say, right there. Let's part it off right there. Okay, so here's the story about my wound to my finger that you keep seeing. When I was doing this other box, I'd worked all day and I was tired, and I was out here doing it, and I had my parting tool in here, but I still had my tailstock up and I had pressure on it, and I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention. Let's see if I can move this camera just a little bit for you. I wasn't paying a lot of attention, and I let this parting tool get jammed, and I had it like this. You see my hand, and when it jammed, it kicked it up and sucked it in, and that piece right there caught my finger and just kind of tore the hide off of it. So it was probably the worst accident I've had on the lathe, so you can't say I've really had a lot of accidents. All right. I don't run real high speed when I'm parting something, because all it does is get the parting tool and the wood hot. Little homemade 1/8" parting tool. I'm gonna keep my gap nice and wide. Because I don't want to make the same mistake again. See where my finger is right here? That's what happened to me the other night. Parting tool caught. So we're subject to having accidents anytime. Nice thing about this is this bottom piece right here is going to be hollowed, so you can actually part in at an angle without wasting a lot of wood. Going in, you need to be careful. Ease in there. Don't just jam it in. And there's three kinds of people I found out when they part things off. There's the guys and ladies that stop and cut it off. And then there's the people that let it bounce off the floor. I'll have to lower that a little bit. Let it bounce off the floor, and then there's the catch it people. So the safest way is to probably use a saw and saw it off. All right. So now we're here. So now what we want to do is we want to make a tenon here for this to fit on nice and tight. So first thing I'm going to do is take a little of this end stuff out of the way. Bring my speed back up. For you guys that want to know, it's running about 1600. I'm just going to take a nice cut. All right. There's a lot of ways to do this. You can measure it. You can't do the Ron Browning no measure cut here because that requires it to be like this. Some of you know what I'm talking about, some of you don't. All right, I use a bowl gouge here, and the reason I do that is I use a straight tool to try and get this edge straight, and I miss it, I make it too small, then I've got to back down the wood here, and then I got to back down the wood here. And I've seen demonstrators before end up, losing a ½ inch of wood because, they got nervous and they missed it, and then they had to start over again. If you miss it a little bit, and your lid's a little bit loose, you can put some sanding sealer on here 2 or 3 times and build it back up where it'll fit a little better. So you can't actually build it back. You just can't build it a long way. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm just gonna take a little off. And you notice I kept this curved here so that if I miss it here, maybe I'll catch it here. And I can tell you I'm still too big. All right. One of the places you don't want to get in a hurry. You guys have any questions while I'm sitting here playing with this? Because this is going to take a few minutes. See, I actually missed it. See that? There it is right there. So I went too far. That's not going to be an issue because by doing it that way, I'll just back up over here and come back down here like this. Just do it again, and I know to stop about right there. Everybody's awful quiet.
You ever put a burn line in by holding the top up there against the curve?
Yeah, I've done that, and it works. I usually hit this. Look, if you're coming out here and you're doing 8 or 10 of these things on a Saturday afternoon, it doesn't take you long to start hitting these pretty close every time. All right, now I'm over the first hump and I'm onto the second one, so I can start squaring it off a little bit. I'm gonna go back to my parting tool here. Close. When it starts to pop like that, you're real close. I said that one time in a demo and it still took me another 10 minutes to get it to fit. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to square up this edge all the way back here, all the way down. I don't need that much of it. Get that out of my way a little bit. I want it fairly tight because I'm going to loosen it up later, but I've also got them so forward where they're so tight you can't get them off. So it's kind of a compromise on on how
Jack?
tight you want it. Yes.
Somebody asked what kind of tool rest you've got there.
That is a robust 9-inch J tool rest. And I like it for boxes. And one of the reasons I like it is because a 6-inch straight rest is a little too short, and then you jump to a 9-inch straight rest, and this one just seems to work pretty well. All right, so now we've got a decent fit. I need to take this down just a little bit so it doesn't bottom out here. So come back around here and take a little cut down the whole thing, get rid of it. So any of your local robust dealers will be glad to sell you one of those, I'm sure. Another thing I like about it is if you have a comfort rest like this, you have a comfort rest like this, and you want to do a shear cut, this rest will only let you drop that handle so far, and it hits the bottom right here. Okay, this doesn't have that on there, so I can drop this thing way down and get a real sharp shear cut off of it.
Can you show us the end
Sorry?
camera? Can you show us that on the end camera?
Yeah, I can. So
Thank you.
turn that around. See, I can take this if I want to make a shear cut, and I can drop it way on down like this and get a real either a shear scrape or a shear cut with it. And I can't do that with the other one because it starts to hit right here at the bottom. So, all right, so let's see what kind of fit we have. So got a little gap in it right there. Right there, I want to get rid of. Go back to this top camera. So I have a little gap here I'd like to get rid of. And it fits pretty good. Yeah, I'll show it a little. Anybody else an NCIS fan? Rule number 9, never go anywhere without a knife. I'm just entertaining myself here, folks.
I'm an NTIS fan, but I don't think I've memorized the different rules.
Oh. All right, now what I'm going to do, well, that's rule number 9. And since my wife and I have watched all of them about 3 times, this is a Cindy Drozda scraper, and I found it's rather hard to keep it sharp, so I use it sparingly, but it's going to allow me to get a perfect square in there, I hope. So it's going to be perfectly perpendicular here to the bedways. I'm going to come right in here. I'm going to touch it very lightly because I just sharpened it. Apparently I did get it shorter. And I'm going to see how my lid fits. Yeah, we're going to live with that. All right. We're going to bring our tailstock back up. Sorry. Let's move some of these cameras around. I'm just going to support this lid a little bit here. You're going to see my shear cut as I square all this back up. I'm going to come in here just like this. I've got the heel of the tool in my thigh. I'm going to actually have to cut my support here down just a little bit right here, and have to get a little of that off. All right, here's my shear cut. All right, let's see how clean we got it. I could have probably done better with a skew, but most people don't like to use a skew, so that'll work fine. This part right here doesn't matter. It broke it out a little bit because we're going to take care of that later. We're going to come back with our texturing tool. We're going to texture it all the way down. In this particular case, we don't have to worry about advancing the handle because all the diameter here stays the same. So this is pretty easy. However, this maple requires a pretty good pressure on it to get this tool to cut in the side grain. So we're going to slow our lathe back down to about 500. Yeah, that's 600. That's close enough. We're going to come in here, right here, straight in pressure. I'm aiming this tool right straight at the center axis of my lathe. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to let it start to track so that it'll start tracking in the same track that it was in before. And I'm just going to slowly advance it all the way on down. Got constant pressure on the back end of this tool. I'm just slowly advancing it. I should have marked where my bottom is going to be, but I'm going to guess at it here in just a second. That looks like that ought to be about right. That means that'll put our end of our box about right here, which would be a nice size box. Okay. Pretty good job. Doesn't have any tear out in it. You can always come back if I can find it here. Little scotch pad, clean it up just a little bit. All right. It's not going to be necessary because we got a good fit here. So it's not going to be necessary to do this, but I want to show you how to do it anyway. Let me grab it here. If you don't get a really good fit on your lid, I always call this Turner's friend right here. Just a plain old masking tape. You want to do it from the back side because you don't want that tag end to get kicked up. So you're going to come right here, stretch it nice and tight. That lid's not going to come off unless you get a major catch. And if you do that, you may break it off the glue block anyway. Okay. Everybody with me so far?
Yeah.
I got a yeah. Thank you for your answer.
Yes.
We're here.
Okay.
Still
We're
here.
all unmuted, watching you, intently.
Yeah, okay.
And you might want to switch to the end camera if you're going to show us work on the top.
Thank you. Always helps to have a director. All right, we'll bring our speed back up. Oh, 1200 or so.
And center up the camera. That's good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. A little bit high on the tool rest. All right. Now we're just going to shape the top and whatever shape we want. We just want to kind of give it a little dome shape here. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's got a nice roll to it. Drop my tool rest down. Do a little scrape across here, clean it up nice and even. This is one reason I like to demonstrate with this hard maple. because I can get a good finish out of it without having to sand it. So there's our end piece. Now we're going to texture that. But remember, let me go back to this camera right here. Now we're domed this way. So for that tool to change angles, I've actually got to advance this tool even faster here than I did on the inside. So.
Can you show the picture in picture on this one?
I'm sorry?
Can you show the picture in picture when you do this?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
And I'll even try and get it where you can see it. How's that?
That looks
You
good.
see both of them?
Yes.
Okay. We're going to slow our lathe back down to about 500. Get on my tool rest. I'm coming right straight in with it, and I'm going to let the track start tracking and picking up its groove it's putting in there. Because if I go in and I immediately start moving it, it may not pick up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in, light pressure, let it start to track, increase the pressure. I'm advancing the handle faster than I'm pulling the tool out. A little bit of split there. Did pretty well. I can live with that.
So can you feel it when it splits?
Can I? Yes. Did you see? Did you see the tool jerk? When I first started, did you see the tool kind of did a little jerk? You can feel it more than you can see it. When I first started doing that, when I got it tracking straight and I first started out, I felt it jerk and I knew that it split it. So, all right. So that's what we've got here. Now what I would do, and I'm going to try this. I don't know how successful we're going to be. I don't want to use any lacquer sanding sealer in here because I don't have adequate ventilation at the moment. And so what I'm going to try and do is I'm just going to try. Normally what I do is right now I would take this off the lathe and I'd have it over here and I'd have some lacquer sanding sealer on it. And then I'd come back later in 20 or 30 minutes and I'd put a color on it. We don't have that kind of time. Nobody wants to sit here and watch something dry. So what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and put some color on it right now. I got some Chromacraft dries here. Yellow happens to be the only color that I have sufficient amount of. So we're going to spray a little yellow on here, which is not my favorite color. And I'm going to keep it light on this end, and hopefully it won't bleed all the way through. I also left it pretty thick. So we ought to be fairly good. Now this is an alcohol-based dye, so it's not going to be nearly as bad on my brain cells as if I were spraying lacquer in here. So let's give it a little try here. Just get a little color.
You know, this is the Tallahassee Club, so if you had a little garnet on top of that, it'd be fine.
Yes.
Oh, knows.
Directors should keep comments to themselves and direct. Okay, we'll give it a second to dry. Shouldn't take it long because it's going to soak in. How many people out there? Just raise your hand. I'm looking at you. How many people out there use any color on the stuff they do? I'm seeing if you're paying attention. Okay.
Oh, you use a lot of color.
Do you use paints and dyes or both?
Both.
Okay. Do you know the main difference between paints and dyes? There's two main differences.
On the surface.
The pigments in dyes are soluble, and so they're saturated inside of what's known as a vehicle or a carrier. In this case, it's alcohol, and it penetrates into the cells or penetrates into the surface of the woods, whereas the pigments in paint sit on top. But now there's another difference. The pigments in paint have what's called a binder that binds the pigments together so that you don't have clumps when you spray it on or you brush it on or something. The color is uniform. dyes don't have any binders in them. So when you put a sanding sealer on here, like I normally do, and you spray a dye on top of it without any binders, a lot of times what you're going to get is you're going to get color splotching, okay? You're going to get color splotching. So, but you're not going to get the color differences between the different grain. In the case of yellow, you can't see that this grain has absorbed different amount of color. Okay, some of it's set more on the top, on the side grain, and it's sunk in more on the end grain. You can't tell that on this color. If I went to a blue or a green, you'd see that the top was much darker than on the side, and that's one reason I use sanding sealer. But when you use sanding sealer, you have to put on a couple of light coats as opposed to what I just did. Okay, so this is dry enough to work with. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to bring a tailstock back up just for safety. Do some things around. I'm going to bring the tailstock back up. I'm going to put a little protector thing here on the end so I don't mess up anything. This is mainly so I don't knock it off and embarrass myself in front of all you guys. If I was alone, I'd just be, slamming a tool in it and not worrying about it. We're going to ease that right there, just enough to hold it on. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try and enhance this by cutting some out here and here. I'm going to define the end of my box. See, I'm going to find the end of my box. I can't believe that you can misplace a tool when you have a little 2x4 table when it's sitting right in front of you. There it is. Okay, so I'm going to define the end of my box right here, right there. We'll go ahead and make that cut. All right, that's what we're going to have in the end. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come about right here, and I'm just going to take a little of this out. You know how much you want to do. That's good. See if I can get this other parting tool in there. I'll get it even and square. A little bit wider. All right, and I'm going to come in about right here. Now, I'll try a couple of different tools here on this end. I was doing a demo, and I happen to have a spindle gouge, detail gouge in my hand, and I said, yeah, I can make that cut with a detail gouge. Well, apparently I couldn't, because I got a catch, and I'll be honest, it startled me so much. I stuck the tool right back in there and got a worse catch. So just because I'm willing to stand up here and embarrass myself in front of you doesn't mean I'm not going to mess something up. There you go. I'm trying to make these two relief cuts about the same, here and here, and that looks pretty good. Now what I'm going to do, get this out of the way. Don't tell the AEW I moved that tool wrist without stopping that lathe.
Well, we all stop our lathe.
Absolutely, and I did
move
too.
our tool rest, yeah.
You just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here again, I found that this is probably the best tool to do here because it's just a hard little cut to make. Because all I'm trying to do is just accent this yellow a little bit. Take a little off the edge here. Really, really light touch, just barely touching it, making the corner. All right, let's see what we got. That looks pretty good. That could be a little deeper there.
Just one last cut.
Yeah, I know. All right.
Famous last words.
Everybody know what this is? Somebody shuddered.
It's a door stop.
That's what Don Geiger says. You know, Don lives right around, well, he lives about 5 miles from me, so I see Don on a regular basis. He is not a fan of a scuba. This is going to be easy. You can't mess this up. I'm going to use this pointy end of it right here. If I can hit this line right, I'm aiming for it. And that's all I'm doing. I'm just putting a little line right there, there. I should have actually done this before I started with my parting tool. If I'd have done it before, I wouldn't have had this little rough edge right here. It would have defined it before that hit it. Okay. Get that out of the way. Anybody know, do they have any friends that are welders? I use a lot of welding at work, and we use 3 different size welding wires, and I saved my $9.95 for those little things by just cutting some welding wire, and it works great. Bring the speed up. Good enough for government work. All right.
And this is the moment that everyone is glad that you're doing this in your garage and not in their workshop.
So they don't have to smell it.
Yep.
All right. Success, it came off. Now, I did this demo for Jacksonville. It was the first demo we did as an IRD. At the time, I was calling them RIDs. I figured that RID made more sense than an IRD, which didn't stand for anything, but that got changed. So Walt was on that demo, and Walt asked the question, why I didn't use a Forstner bit here. And I remember why I don't use one. And I mentioned it in turning, and I kept going. And then I realized later, well, you know, why don't I really use a Forstner bit? And I'll tell you why. And then we're going to use one. How about that? So Walt, you're going to win. Score five brownie points for that one. So give me just a second. I know you guys can't see me. I'm just changing the live center out for a Forstner bit. All right. I'm sorry. When you bump anything, all these cameras move. So the reason I don't use a Forstner bit are twofold. Well, actually 3. One thing is I was trying to use a Forstner bit that was bigger, and then I was trying to round the bottom out. I was trying to deal with this point right here. Let me turn this off. I was trying to deal with this point, and and it was leaving a rim right here that I was having a hard time coming up with this shape with a Forstner bit coming down to here. But then I realized, you know, why don't I just use a Forstner bit that's going to come to here, and then I'll finish hollowing it out and just take a bunch of wood out. So that should work. The other problem that I have with Forstner bits is if you use them a lot, you know, they produce a lot of heat. And so when you get this thing hot, and then you try and, the last thing we want to do is size our lid, and you get the lid to then fit. If that wood hadn't cooled back down, tomorrow that lid falls off. So, because wood, like everything else, when it gets hot, it expands. So we're going to drill this to about here, which I'm going to guess is going to be about right here. Maybe I should actually measure that. What do you think? About right there. Maybe a little bit more. Yeah, that looks good. All right. So watching somebody drill with a Forstner bit is kind of like watching paint dry. You know that, don't you? I got the lathe down again about 500 RPMs. Hold my bit. Guess I got a little too much of a bit. I'm also on the fast speed here on the lathe, so I may have to make lighter cuts or change speeds on it. Those shavings coming out of there hitting my hand are extremely hot. All right, we should be good about there. All right. All right. We got it drilled. Got that out of the way. Now comes the hollowing. And this is like a really personal thing, how you want to hollow this. When I first started making them, I don't have it with me, but I used a scraper like this. It's called a box scraper. Jimmy Clues makes them. I actually made my own. It angles about here around, goes up in there, and I scraped all my boxes. And I was never a real fan of carbide tools, but carbide tools make and this is a good shape in the bottom too. They make a good tool to hollow with. Let's just do a little hollowing with it here, and you can see. You know, it does a fine job.
Would you show us the picture in picture again, please? Thank you.
You're just taking it here and you're just hollowing with it. You know, it's got to be on center. Does a pretty good job. Scraper, just plain old round nose scraper. Every cheap tool set you get has a round nose scraper in it. Works fine. You can see it up in there if I get it in the center. Does a great job. My favorite way is to actually go ahead and use a hollowing tool because it's the fastest. Remember, this is my production box. So when I start hollowing, I'm going to put this tool on one time and I'm going to hollow 4, 5, 6 boxes with it before it comes back off again. So I'm going to have to turn this camera off and move it a little bit out of my way. See if I can. All right, I just had a camera unplug. Everybody just stay with me. We're having technical difficulties.
Do you need help?
Got it?
What kind of hollowing rig is that?
I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I plugged my camera back in and it didn't back on. This is a Trent Bosch hollowing system. And one of the reasons I like about it, this is the main thing I like about it, is it's off and it's on. It's as fast as changing the tool rest. Once you set it up and get the heights all set on it, it's a done deal. It's just super, super fast and simple. So I have 3 hollowing systems. This is my favorite, up to, I don't know, 8 inches or so. Once you get over 7 or 8 inches, it's a smaller system that he makes. It becomes harder to control. Yeah, I lost the camera, Stephanie. You want to come out here and see if you can get it to work. So we're going to watch this one, and I'm sorry we lost this tailstock camera. And we're going to hollow this out. This is not going to take very long. This camera came unplugged right here. Unplugged right here. And it's going to be in the software. I think it didn't read me. All right. I'm sorry you can't see this, but as you can tell, I'm not doing anything fancy. I'm just taking some wood out. One of the things I am trying to do is I'm trying to get this first section right here either square or beveled back in. I can bevel it back in because I've cut some here so I can come back in so that when I expand a chuck in it, thank you. That's folks, that's why you always have an IT person. See how fast you fix that? Okay, there you go. So right here, I want to have it at least parallel with the bedways or angled out so that my chuck will grab it. Because if I'm doing multiple of these, I don't want to have to make a jam chuck down here every time I do it. So let me get this hollowed. Only take a second. Good time for questions if anybody has any.
Jack, how are you keeping a track on the bottom of your box?
Right. How am I doing what on it?
Keeping track of the bottom of your box as you're hollowing. Do you have a method for just know by heart where it is, or?
I kind of experience. I mean, I can measure it. We can, my favorite place in the world, Harbor Freight Tools. If I go through, it's going to be embarrassing.
That's kind of why I said might mention it.
There's where I'm at. Okay.
Okay.
So I got plenty of meat left. And I wanted to stop short because I wanted to take that little divot spot out of the bottom where that Forstner bit left it in there.
Okay.
And typically on demonstration boxes, I'll be honest with you, I don't try and do a whole lot of hollowing on them because it's kind of like watching grass grow. If I'm doing a hollow form or something in a demonstration, then obviously the hollowing is an important part of it. And that's what people want to know, how to measure it. You can tell this stuff's awful dusty too. All right, let's take a measurement and see where we're at. We're down about there. We're still a little fat. Give me another minute.
I've got a question for you then while you're doing
Yes.
that. Can you mount a laser to that system?
Yes, you can. And I actually have a laser for it. In the case of a box, the whole box is open. You don't really need to be measuring too much. You can just kind of feel the whole thing with your fingers and know where you're at. But yes, this Trent Bosch actually makes what he calls a visualizer. It's about $800. I didn't buy one. I made my own with a closed circuit TV camera and an old monitor we had around here. And because I do a lot of hollow forms. I also do a demo on a bottom hollowed form because I do a lot of hollow forms that I use for canvases for some of my paint work. Most of you wouldn't know this, but I grew up in a family that owned a body shop, and most of my life off and on, I've worked in the body repair industry. And so for a number of years, I did custom painting. That's still a little thick, but we're going to leave it because I don't want to actually just sit here and cut that out. So we're going to call that. Now's the time when you need to also put a little sanding sealer in there. I'm going to pass on that because I can get to it later and do it, but I'm going to see if I need to sand it at all.
Jack, I have a question.
Yes.
What is that white base underneath your tool rest base, and why do you?
This is just a piece of that writing board, that you can hang up for writing notes and stuff on.
Right.
You can buy it at Home Depot or Lowe's. I bought a half a sheet. I cut it in various things. I have a piece that goes there. I have a piece that sits on my bed when I'm painting. I have a piece that goes over my headstock so that I don't get all the spray that you see on it. But unfortunately, that takes time when I'm doing a demo. So if I'm out here painting a lot or something, I'll use it. If I'm just doing a demo, I don't. I just worry about the overspray later.
So what is it? What's its purpose here?
I'm sorry.
What is it doing here? What is it there for?
You see the picture now?
Yes.
See the picture now?
Oh, to make it clearer. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. It's all about what you can see with these cameras. These cameras are kind of, they autofocus, which causes a problem.
Right.
When you're trying to turn. And when the light is good for this camera, the light is really hard on a demonstrator.
Okay.
It's I don't see nearly as well trying to demo as I do if I'm out here turning and I've got this little teeny light right here. So I put that light on there where I want it. See, you can't see it,
You can't
blows it
see
out.
Okay,
So I take that light off, so you got a much better picture.
okay, thank you.
So that's just to help. And it also helps when you got a light piece of wood, you use something white down here. It makes this autofocusing camera focus better, and it makes it pick up the color, the light adjustment on it, because it also controls for light. It makes it just more contrast to it,
Okay.
so you can see what's going on. That needs a little
Really
sanding. I'm sorry?
So I really like that. It's a nice touch.
Yeah, Cindy Droza started that, and everybody said, wow, great idea, and they all jumped on it. So Cindy should have patented it. She was slow on that. Yeah. Okay. So what we've got now is we've got a box. It's basically done except for the bottom. We're going to see how our top fits now. Sometimes, see that top loosened up. You see that? It got a little looser. That's not a bad fitting top. It's got a little pop to it. I'll be quiet. Maybe you can hear it. Hear it? Ideally, if you wanted a top that really fit well, set this thing aside for an hour or two. Let all these temperatures, because it's still warm in there. Let all these temperatures kind of go back to wherever they need to be, and then recut it. I'm gonna trim just a little bit out of it, or it'll come off just a little bit easier. This is that famous last cut when you blow it.
It gets looser over time.
Sometimes they do, and sometimes they get tighter. Looser is easier because you can put a little clear finish on it and fix it. Tighter is more difficult because it's tough to sand this little thing. All I did was just touch that. I call that totally acceptable. All right, let's start that thing off. Turn it around and finish off the bottom. How are we doing on time?
You're fine.
Okay. I'm going to concave my bottom just a little bit. All right, we'll get rid of this. All right, so if you're going to use a lot of these homemade blocks, you need to either drill a hole in them here where you can get them off, or get you one of these things from Harbor Freight, wrap it around there. Because they will get stuck on here because they're wood. There's my spacer I was telling you about earlier. That's a metal one. I actually have a couple of different ones of wood I use. I forgot to mention on these blocks that I make, I use either persimmon or dogwood because I want something that's really hard and it holds a good thread and doesn't move around. And once dogwood and persimmon are dry, they don't move anymore. They're there for kind of like ever. All right. We're going to go to our chuck now. Oh, surprise, surprise. All right. I had my chuck on something. We're going to go to our chuck. Maybe we are, folks. Make sure that we're going to be able to go on there. And it's, sizing is not an issue here. And because I'm going to show you what we're going to do. This is a process that I don't know when I started doing it, but I found it works real well. I'm going to open my jaws up. I'm really, okay. I'm going to open my jaws up. Everything's falling. Gravity must be strong right here till where it's barely catching. See it? I've barely got it on there. And I'm going to turn it back in a little bit. I'm going to take my masking tape. As soon as I find my masking tape, I'm going to take my masking tape and I'm going to roll it sticky side out. So I'm going to take it like this and I'm going to roll it just like this, okay? And I'm going to sit it right there just like that. And I'm going to go right around these jaws. That's going to protect the inside of my box. And actually, you'd be surprised at just how well just the adhesive of this tape. I do a lot of my bowls this way. I just put them on with masking tape, and it works pretty well. So, all right, we're going to do that. We're going to put our box on, gently open it out. Nice and square, gently open it out. Don't break your box. If I did it right, it should run true. Yeah, not exactly. Let's try it again. You're going to have a problem here of it running true if you don't get that first part parallel where those jaws go in there. That's better, but it's not on there very good. Let's see if it's going to stay on there. Yeah, I'm going to have to make some really light cuts here.
It doesn't look like your board's quite under your,
How's that? Is that still a good view for you folks?
Looks good.
Yes.
We're just going to clean this up. If you get a catch here, you're going to send this piece flying. Everybody should know how I know that.
Do a little duck.
Yeah, I'll clean it up just a little bit. Little shear scrape here. Folks, if you practice these shear cuts and shear scrapes, you'll find you use a lot less of that expensive sandpaper and end up with a much better finish. All right, that's good enough. We're going to put a little texture in it. Hopefully it'll stay on there. I'm going to do a little bit different here than I've done. I'm not going to try and run it out. I'm just going to put pressure right straight in with the tool. And let me turn this camera off. I'm going to come around right straight in with the tool and put direct pressure on it. Here. I'm just putting a pencil line here to use to locate with. So hopefully when I turn this on, I'll be able to see it like that.
can we see the end camera too?
Yeah, I was gonna say, can you use the end camera? Thanks.
There. All right, I got my little pointy tool here. I'm above center. Little pointy tool. Right straight in. very lightly. Again. If you leave a little pencil mark, it's not a problem. You put a little piece of sandpaper on it, pencil mark will come right out. Now there's the jaw is completely loose, and you see it's still on there pretty good. I'm having to actually pull it fairly hard for it to come off. So there's our end box. Here's what we got. Let me see if I can get a different camera here because that one's blowing it out. There's our box, folks. I'd put a couple of coats of a clear lacquer on it. If you have an Ace Hardware, you can use DEF. If you want a good clear lacquer, and let me explain some differences to you real quick before I get out of here. I'll grab 2 cans here. If I'm making something and I want an inexpensive clear, I use this, which is a DEF. It's a pretty good lacquer. The problem with it is it doesn't have any kind of, turn that off. It doesn't have any kind of UV blockers in it. If you've ever turned any box elder or any cherry turns brown, you know, box elder, the red fades out and everything. That's the UV light that's taking the color out of it, just like your car. Your car's got a really expensive clear coat finish on it because it's loaded with UV blockers and it protects the color of your car. But if you notice a red car after 10 years is not as red as it used to be because the UV blockers that are in the clear on it are starting to break down. This, to my knowledge, has no blockers in it. This particular color, this higher grade dyes do have some UV blockers in them to help them, but not a lot. So if you actually want to save the color and have it last for years, this is what I recommend. It's got a UV blocker in it. It's crystal clear. It's much clearer than this other stuff. It's crystal clear. It's got a UV blocker in it. It's a really good clear, and it's an automotive quality clear. I've used it, and I shoot a lot of, I don't anymore, but I shot a lot of clear and a lot of colors over the years on cars, and so I recommend this. It's a little bit more pricey than this. This I think is about $8 a can. And I think this is $11 a can. So, but you get what you pay for. So that's pretty much it. Questions?
On the finishes, have you seen a difference between the acrylic lacquers and the celluloid lacquers?
You know, I quit using those lacquers years ago. They tend to, first of all, the acrylic lacquers are much more weather resistant. You know, a cellulose lacquer, if you have a piece of furniture that's a cellulose lacquer and you put your,
Can you change the camera to your face?
code, I'm sorry, yes I can. If you have a cellulose lacquer table or something, you know, you set a cold drink on it, it leaves that little milky ring and stuff. So it's got some issues there. And the acrylic lacquers, acrylic meaning it's got some plasticizes in it. Is a much more durable lacquer. I'll show you what I shoot a lot of. Because I shoot a lot of this. Okay, I don't know if you can see it.
Water base?
No, this is a true automotive quality lacquer. This can of lacquer is like $45, and that's not bad. But the lacquer thinners that go in it is about another $90 a gallon. But it's a crystal clear lacquer. And if you put it on something and it ends up being a museum piece, 50 years from now, it'll still look like the day you finished it. So, but this it doesn't require a lot of skill. Lacquer is really, really easy to shoot through a spray gun. I shoot it through a cheap Harbor Freight $20 spray gun, mostly. I have some expensive spray guns, but the cheaper ones do a fine job. And I don't feel bad if I don't clean it up really well. You know, if I just kind of halfway run some lacquer thinner through it and throw it in the corner, I'm perfectly good with that. I'm not that good with doing a $700 gun that way. Easy to shoot, a good durable finish, lasts a long time. You know, most people just don't want to go in for buying $100 worth of clears to put on stuff. So, did that answer your question?
Well, is the DEF is a cellulose lacquer or is it acrylic?
No, I think it's an acrylic lacquer, isn't it? maybe it doesn't say on here. To be honest with you, I don't know which it is. I use it where I'm not concerned about finishes so much. Boxes get a lot of that because they're gonna get used. When I turn a really nice piece, if you want to hang on a second, I'll grab a piece and show you. So since we're just talking.
Alt, is there some way you could have somebody come on and do a whole program just on finishing and the finishes that are available?
I am working on a program for that, but I'm having to shoot it on tape because it takes too long for them to dry. Let me see if I can get this camera here to pick it up because this is going to be a better camera.
I can see it.
There, that one's not finished yet. So
Beautiful.
that's got probably 8 or 10 coats of the lacquer I just showed you in a can on it. And you
Wow.
can see it's already got a high gloss, but it hasn't been sanded and polished yet.
Oh, it's
Wow.
beautiful.
But that will never fade. I have all confidence that piece right there will look like that 100 years from now. As long as my grandkids don't get a hold of it. And it might not make it 10 minutes.
Very nice.
Yes, it is.
Other questions?
No, that spiraling technique, it really is a learning experience because it is the pressure you have to put in there and, the learning how to move it in the angle. It takes some practice. You make it look pretty easy.
Yeah, but see this piece right here that's left over? I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 4 or 5 practice pieces right there on that one piece. And it's
Yeah.
too little to use for anything. It's not good for anything. So I might as well practice with my spiraling tool on it.
Yeah, that's perfect.
So that's where you get good, because if you wait around to try a new technique on a nice piece, then you end up with possibly a piece that's not so nice anymore. So
I agree.
it's that one last cut.
Can we see
Yes.
your face, please?
Yeah, you can see my face. I'm sorry. My wife wants to see my face. Other questions?
That's a good thing.
And I am working on a dyeing, painting, refinishing. It'll be a demo, but it'll basically in a format of a bunch of videos tied together because of drying times and I'm out here in the shop and I don't have normally if I'm spraying stuff I open the shop completely up so I don't get asphyxiated. So that'll be a while, maybe a couple of months. I'll have it done.
Okay. Look forward to it.
Well,
Thank you.
thanks, Jack and Stephanie. I've watched Jack now in a couple of these productions, and he gets better every time. And Stephanie, you're a great director, producer.
Yeah, something. She keeps me straight, guys. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Paul, I'll give you a call in a day or two. We were talking about tomorrow. I think Thursday works better for me for a test if Thursday works for you.